In statistics, variety, the amount, the quantity of degrees of freedom is that the number of values within the final calculation of a data point that are unengaged to vary. 1. The number of freelance ways in which, by which a dynamic system will move, while not violating any constraint obligatory therein, is named variety of degrees of freedom. In different words, variety, the amount, the quantity of degrees of freedom are often outlined because the minimum number of freelance coordinates that may specify the position of the system utterly. Estimates of applied mathematics parameters are often primarily based upon totally different amounts information bar of knowledge or data. The amount of freelance items of knowledge that get in the estimate of a parameter are known as the degrees of freedom. In general, the degrees of freedom of an estimate of a parameter are capable the amount of freelance scores that get in the estimate minus the amount of parameters used as intermediate steps within the estimation of the parameter itself, e.g., the sample variance has n1 degrees of freedom, since it's computed from n random scores minus the sole one parameter calculable as intermediate step, that is that the sample mean 2. Mathematically, degrees of freedom is that the variety of dimensions of the domain of the random vector, or basically the amount of free elements, how several elements ought to be acknowledged before the vector is absolutely determined. The term is most frequently utilized in the context of linear models, linear regression, analysis of variance, wherever bound random vectors are unnatural to consist linear subspaces, and also the variety of degrees of freedom is that the dimension of the topological space. The degrees of freedom are normally related to the square lengths or sum of squares of the coordinates of such vectors, and also the parameters of chi-squared and different distributions that arise in associated applied mathematics testing issues. While introductory textbooks might introduce degrees of freedom as distribution parameters or through hypothesis testing, it's the underlying pure mathematics that defines degrees of freedom and is crucial to a correct understanding of the thought. Walker 1943 has declared this compactly as the variety of observations minus the amount of necessary relations among these observations. Although the fundamental thought of degrees of freedom was recognized as early as 1821 within the work of analogist and man of science Carl Friedrich Gauss, for its fashionable definition and usage was first elaborated by English statistician William Seeley Gosset in his 1908 biometric article The Probable Error of the Mean, revealed below the pseudonym Student 5. Whereas Gosset didn't really use the term degrees of freedom, he explained the thought within the course of developing what became referred to as Student's T distribution. The term itself was popularized by English statistician and scientist Ronald Fisher, starting together with his 1922 work on chi-squared.